what is it about topic selection? What can we know more about why certain people might select certain topics to be worthy of study? But to couch this, we interrogated the background and said, well, what do we know about science generally? We know that science has historically not been distributed, the benefits of science have not been distributed evenly across the globe, certainly across, not within the United States. And so here are just some high-level key points. In healthcare and medical systems, heart attack symptoms in women are very much understudied relative to men and misdiagnosed. Black women in the United States are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. The effects of COVID vaccines on menstruation were omitted in the first studies. And algorithms have been known and continue to reduce the number of Black patients identified for additional care by greater than 50% relative to equally ill white patients. So we know that there are disparities that have existed and continue to exist. And it's across industry sectors. In education, we have algorithms that assign grades to students favoring private schools. The criminal justice system, recidivism risk models are twice as likely to misclassify Black offenders compared to reoffending compared to white ones. And we have facial recognition software that disproportionately misclassified darker-skinned females compared to lighter-skinned males. I can go on and on with these types of statistics. So this was our primary takeaway. When a group is understudied by science, this has direct consequences for the health and welfare of that population. So why are some topics understudied, right? So we sought to interrogate whether race and gender influenced scientific topic selection. The distribution of research topics, we wanted to see we looked at first author to see if that varied by race and gender. And we sought to understand which authors were more likely to focus on research related to marginalized populations. We also interrogated citation gaps by race, gender, and research topic. So here are the high-level takeaways. We looked at about 4.5 million articles in the Web of Science, and we found that the topic space is racialized. Again, you can find the paper here. It's racialized and it's gendered. So if we look intersectionally, right, you can find very clear linkages between the race and gender identity of the author and what topics they choose to study. We also found that women were least cited, even when controlling for topics, than men. And this was particularly worse for Black and Latina women in the United States context. If parity were achieved, we would know 53% more than we currently do know about nursing, 37.5% more about social work, 29% more in public health. And this is pre-COVID. So if you think about the implications of loss of knowledge and the real implications, particularly public health, nursing, these are very important topics for us as a society, right, for our public good. The sources, I'll jump through this because we are talking about data sources and evidence, right? Census data, mortgage application data, Web of Science data. We use a variety of sources for our model. Here's just a couple of images to demonstrate how the topic space maps out based on the feminized, the degree to which the author has a name that is associated with that of a woman, right, gendered, and racialized. So if you'll see, ooh, I don't want to click the wrong button. Asian is the A box. You see a Black to the right, Latinx in the lower left, white. And so for the same topics, we see very different distributions on who's more likely to study what topic relative to where they fall on this gendered and racialized axis. Highly feminized topics include gender-based violence, families, literacy, nursing, pregnancy, and education. These are topics for which we are more likely to find authors, first authors who have feminized names. Racialized topics. Our Black authors are more likely to study topics related to racial discrimination, African American, racial disparities. Latina authors study immigration, racial discrimination, language. Again, this is the US context, but you can imagine this, and we're actually in the process of replicating this study in other country contexts, you can see how this would be very relevant for what science gets produced at a national level. Asian authors, China, firms, stocks, and I apologize for the bottom, white authors tend to have a broader distribution, logistics, right, economic, some the generalities. Okay. As I mentioned, we find that men are cited more. The citation gaps, we wanted to know if these could be explained by topic. We all know that certain topics are cited less than others. But we wanted to know, is this the cause? And we find that no. Even in low or high cited topics, men, for controlling for topic, are more highly cited in both highly cited generally and lowly cited topics. So we find both an inter-topic and intra-topic bias in scientific knowledge production. So when considering quality, equity, and diversity of sources, who scientists are influences what science gets produced. This is why it matters who's at the table. This is why it matters who is part of the discussion, the knowledge production process. Overall, relative to their share of the US population, Black and Latinx women are the most underrepresented in US scientific publications, and they're the most likely to have their racialized and gendered identities directly linked to the topics that they select to study. So a few concluding remarks. Who we are and where we are housed has a direct correlation with what resources we have access to, funding, what knowledge we contribute to the scientific enterprise. We measure this in terms of published articles. And race and gender neutral science policies will perpetuate inequalities and biases, undermining overarching equity goals. A failure to recognize these values and subsequent failure to take action will be both a failure to science and society long term.